Hello, guys. Today we will see the explanation of the story Madam Rides the Bus. So, here the main character, Wali, is shown to be a curious child, and this feature has been highlighted in the story. And she gets fascinated by the things, and her fascination arose attraction due to which she undertake an adventure trip without worrying about the risk and dangers that it involves. So let's move to part 1, paragraph first. There was a little girl named Wali Amai who was called Wali for short. And she was 8 years old and very curious about things. And her favorite pastime was standing in front of doorway of her house watching what was happening in the street outside, and there were no playmates of her own age on her street, and this was about all she had to do. Curious means eager to know or learning something. The story is about an 8-year-old girl named Wali, and just like every child, Wali is eager to know about new and unknown things, because of which she can spend all day looking at the hustle and bustle of the street. Moreover, she has no friends to play with, so the only option she has is to look at what is going on outside. But for Wali, standing at the front door was every bit as enjoyable as any of the elaborate games other children played. Watching the street gave her many new unusual experiences. The most fascinating thing was the bus had traveled between her village and the nearest town. It passed through her street each hour, once going to the town and once coming back. The sight of the bus filled each time with a new set of the passengers was a source of unending joy for Wali. So here, even though she couldn't play with friends, looking at the outside affair was just as entertaining. She learned a lot of new things in the process. And the best part was the arrival and departure of the bus that routed from her village to a nearby town. The bus crossed the village street at early interval, once while going to the town and the other while coming back, and just gazing at the bus filled with a new set of passengers every time it crossed the street gave Wali lasting excitement and joy. Day after day she watched the bus, and gradually a tiny wish crept into her head and grew there. She wanted to ride on that bus, even if just once. This wish became stronger and stronger until it was an overwhelming desire. Wali would stare wistfully at the people who got on or off the bus. When it stopped at the street corner, their face would kindle her longings, dreams, and hopes. If one of her friends happened to ride the bus and tried to describe the sight of the town to her, Wali would be too jealous to listen and would shout in English, "Proud, proud." Neither she nor her friends really understood the meaning of the word, but they used it often as a slang expression of disapproval. So, wistfully means longingly, kindle means set alight, means like feelings. A slang expression means informal word often used within a close group. After continuously watching the bus arrive and depart for a couple of days, even she wished to take a ride on it just once. And soon the wish grew stronger and became a desire, which means that there was now more longing to travel in the bus. And she would be fascinated by looking at people's face who would step out of the bus. And her desire grew to the extent that would be jealous if any of her friend would go by bus and recite their experience. Upon listening to them, she would exclaim, "Proud, proud." Neither she nor her friends knew the actual meaning of the word proud, and but would use it in order to express disapproval. Over many days and months, Wali listened carefully to conversation between her neighbors and people who regularly used the bus, and she also asked a few discreet questions here and there. This way, she picked up various small details about the bus journey. The town was 6 miles from her village. The fare was 30 paisa one way, which is almost nothing at all. She heard one well dressed man say, but to Wali, who scarcely saw that much money from one month to the next, it seemed a fortune. The trip to the town took 45 minutes. On reaching town, if she stayed in her seat and paid another 30 paise, she could return home on the same bus. This meant that she could take 1 o'clock afternoon bus, reach the town at 1:45 and be back home by about 2:45. On and on went her thoughts as she calculated and recalculated and planned and replanned. So, here, discrete questions means careful questions. In order to fulfill her desire of traveling by bus alone, she needed to be prepared with all sorts of information. Therefore, she started paying attention to conversations between her neighbors who were used to traveling by bus, and in the process would ask a few questions, careful questions to gain further informations. And this way she prepared a plan and knew that the town was 6 miles from the village, and one sided fare was 30 paise, which was nothing for a well dressed man, and but was too much for Wali, and the trip duration on one side was 45 minutes. The same bus, upon finishing its trip till town, would bring Wali back if she paid 30 paise more. Thus, if she could get on the bus by 1 o'clock in the afternoon and reach there by 1:45, and same bus could bring her back to the village by 2:45. This way, she calculated to save that much amount and time to sneak out without anyone noticing. So, this is the plan of Wali. Let's move to the next part. Well, one fine spring day, the afternoon bus was just on the point of leaving the village and turning into the main highway when a small voice was heard shouting, "Stop the bus! Stop the bus!" and a tiny hand was raised commandingly. So, commandingly means in a controlling tone. After replanning and recalculating, finally came the riding day. Bus was on its usual route to the main highway when they heard a shouting voice commanding them to stop the bus. The bus slowed down to a crawl, and the conductor, sticking his head out of the door, said, "Hurry then, tell whoever it is to come quickly." "It's me," shouted Wali. "I'm the one who has to get on." By now the bus had come to a stop, and the conductor said, "Oh, really? You don't say so?" "Yes, I simply have to go to town," said Wali, still standing outside the bus, "and here's my money." She showed him some coins. "Okay, okay, but first you must get on the bus," said the conductor, and he stretched out a hand to help her. "Never mind," she said, "I can get on by myself. You don't have to help me." So here, on hearing the voice, the bus slowed down, and on seeing Wali, a small girl, conductor asked her to tell one supposed to travel to hurry up. When Wali told him that she was the passenger, he was shocked to see such a young girl, and thus stopped the bus. And it was hard for the conductor to believe that she was about to travel alone. And then she handed him her bus fare. The conductor offered her help to climb up the bus, but responsible and proud as she was, and she made her intentions clear that she needed no help. The conductor was a jolly sort. The conductor was a jolly sort, fond of joking. "Oh, please don't be angry with me, my fine madam," he said. Here, have a seat right up there in front. Everybody move aside, please. Make way for madam. It was the slack time of day, and there were only 6 or 7 passengers on the bus. They were all looking at Wally and laughing with the conductor. Wally was overcome with shyness, avoiding everyone's eyes. She walked quickly to an empty seat and sat down. Slack time means a time when there is not much work. When little Wally refused to take any help, the conductor sarcastically asked her not to be angry with him and that he is just trying to help. In a light tone, he addressed her madam and escorted her to the seat while telling other passengers to make way for the madam. And since it was afternoon, not many people travel during this time, and thus everyone's eyes were at Wally. All of them adored her along with the conductor while everyone was laughing, and it made Wally shy, and thus she hurried to her seat. So let's move to the next page. May we start now, madam? The conductor asked, smiling. Then he blew his whistle twice and the bus moved forward with a roar. It was a new bus, its outside painted a gleaming white with some green stripes along the sides. Inside, the overhead bars shone like silver directly in front of Wally. Above the windshields, there was a beautiful clock. The seats were soft and luxurious. So here, again, in a sarcastic tone, the conductor seeks the approval of Madam before beginning the journey and then blows his whistle twice to signal the driver to start the bus. Then the bus was new, as was evident from the overhead silver bar, and there was shining. There was a clock just in front of Wally, and the seats were extremely comfortable. The outside was painted in a glowing white with stripes of green along the sides. Wally devoured everything with her eyes, but when she started to look outside, she found her view cut off by a canvas blind that covered the lower part of her window, so she stood up on the seat and peered over the blind. Devoured means read quickly and eagerly. Canvas is the course of fabric. Blind means a partition. She quickly glanced at the inside of the bus and turned towards the window to have a view of the outside, but couldn't have the complete view for she was too short and the window blinds were obstructing her views. Thus, she decided to stand up to be able to look properly. The bus was now going along the bank of the canal. The road was very narrow. On one side there was a canal, and beyond it palm trees, grassland, distant mountains, and the blue sky. On the other side was a deep ditch, and then acres and acres of green fields, green, 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 as far as the eye could see. Oh, it was all wonderful. Suddenly she was startled by a voice. Listen, child, said the voice. You shouldn't stand like that. Sit down. So the bus was on a very narrow road. On one side there was a canal, and beyond it trees, distant mountains, and a large blue sky could seen. Whereas on the other hand there was greenery all around. And Wally was enjoying a lot when suddenly someone asked her to sit down. Sitting down, she looked to see who had spoken. It was an elderly man who had honestly been concerned for her, but she was annoyed by his attention. While sitting down to see who told her so, she saw an old man showing concern for her, still in no mood for anyone's help or advice. It made Wally annoyed. There's nobody here who's a child, she said haughtily. I have paid my 30 paise like everyone else. The conductor chimed in, "Oh, sir, but this is a very grown up madam. Do you think a mere girl could pay her own fare and travel to the city all alone?" Wally shot an angry glance at the conductor and said, "I am not a madam. Please remember that. And you have not yet given me my ticket." "I will remember," the conductor said, mimicking her tone. Everyone laughed, and gradually Wally too joined in the laughter. The conductor punched a ticket and handed it to her. "Just sit back and make yourself comfortable. Why should you stand when you have paid for a seat?" "Because I want to," she answered, standing up again. So here, Wally was too proud to take anyone's help and thus told old man that she was not a child. She said that she was just like everyone else traveling in the bus and could take care of herself. And she had paid the full fare just like everyone else. The conductor made a remark that she is a grown-up madam because a child could never pay for his or her bus ticket. Wally annoyingly told the conductor not to call her madam and reminded him that she has not yet received the ticket. The conductor then responded by mimicking her tone, thereby making everyone laugh. Wally ended up laughing too, and the conductor then handed her the ticket and asked her, "Just sit back and make yourself comfortable. Why should you stand when you have paid for a seat?" To which Wally proudly replied that she would do whatever she wanted to. "But if you stand on the seat, you may fall and hurt yourself when the bus makes a sharp turn or hits a bump. That's why we want you to sit down, child." "That's why we want you to sit down, child." "I'm not a child, I tell you," she said irritably. "I'm 8 years old." Of course, of course. How stupid of me. 8 years. My. The bus stopped. Some new passengers got on and the conductor got busy for a time. Afraid of losing her seat, Wally finally sat down. An elderly woman came and sat beside her. "Are you all alone, dear?" she asked Wally as the bus started again. Wally found the woman absolutely repulsive. Such big holes she had in her earlobes and such ugly earrings in them. And then she could smell the betel nut the woman was chewing and see the betel juice that was threatening to spill over her lips at any. Ugh, who could be sociable with such a person? So here, repulsive means causing strong dislike. They further tried on explaining that they were genuinely concerned about her and she may hurt herself as she continued to stand. And she again made it clear that she was 8 years old and hence not a child. And then the conductor did not leave this chance to have a good laugh too. The bus stopped and more passengers boarded the bus, and in order to preserve her seat, she quickly sat down, and when an old woman sat near her, the lady was staring at Wally before asking her if she was all alone. And Wally developed a strong dislike for the lady whose earlobes had big holes, and she did not like her earrings too. And looking at how she was chewing betel nut, and she was the last person Wally would like to socialize with. "Yes, I am traveling alone," she answered curtly, "and I have got a ticket too." "Yes, she's on her way to town," said the conductor with a 30 paise ticket. "Oh, why don't you mind your own business?" said Wally. But she laughed all the same, and the conductor laughed too. But the old woman went on with her drivel. "Is it proper for such a young person to travel alone? Do you know exactly where you are going in town? What's the street? What's the house number? You didn't bother about me. I can take care of myself," Wally said, turning her face towards the window and staring out. So curtly means rudely or abruptly. Drivel means silly nonsense. So though annoyed by the elderly lady, Wali replied to her by saying that yes, she was traveling alone and that too with a ticket of her own. Evidently, the conductor spared no chance of tease Wali and have a good laugh. Now Wali laughed with him too, while the old lady continued to interrupt by asking abrupt questions out of concern that she was bothered about Wali's security and if she could reach her destination safely all alone. Wali assured her that she can travel alone and started looking outside the window to avoid further conversation. Now let's move to third part. Her first journey, what careful, painstaking, elaborate plans she had had to make for it. She had thriftily saved whatever stray coins came her way, resisting every temptation to buy peppermints, toys, balloons, and the like, and finally she had saved a total of 60 paise. How difficult it had been, particularly that day at the village fair, but she had resolutely stifled a strong desire to ride the merry-go-round even though she had the money. Thriftily means spend money carefully, resolutely trifled means surprised, controlled with determination. Undoubtedly, she had put innumerable amount of effort in planning and saving for her first ever bus journey, and it was a dream ride of her. She resisted every temptation, ranging from peppermint toys, balloons to merry-go-round at the village fair. After so many efforts, she finally saved 60 paise. After she had enough money saved, her next problem was how to slip out of the house without her mother's knowledge. But she managed this without too much difficulty. Every day after lunch, her mother would nap from about 1 to 4 or so. Wali always used these hours for her excursions. As she stood looking from the doorway of her house, or sometimes even ventured out into the village. Today, these same hours could be used for her first excursion outside the village. Ventured out means went cautiously or courageously. So when the financial obstacle had been dealt with, the next problem was to able to sneak out without anyone noticing. And usually Wali's mother used to sleep from 1 to 4 every afternoon, and Wali used to benefit from this and used to go for excursions in the village. And this time it could be used for an excursion outside the village by bus. The bus rolled on, now cutting across the bare landscape, now rushing through a tiny hamlet or past an odd wayside shop. Sometimes the bus seemed on the point of gobbling up another vehicle that was coming towards them or a pedestrian crossing the road. But lo, somehow it passed on smoothly, leaving all obstacles safely behind. Trees came running towards them, but then stopped as the bus reached them and simply stood there helpless for a moment by the side of the road before rushing away in the other direction. So, hamlet is the small settlement with a few houses. Gobbling up means to swallow or eat, um, eating fastly. Now the bus reached an area which did not have trees. It was a barren land with a few shrubs here and there, and it crossed a small settlement and a shop by the road. And as the bus went with a high speed, Wali thought that it would swallow the ongoing vehicles and the pedestrian, but it passed safely, crossing all hurdles. When the bus was moving, it seemed as if trees were rushing towards the bus and it would stop as soon as the bus reached them. As the bus crossed them, they appeared as if the trees were running away from the bus. Suddenly, Wali clapped her hands with glee. A young cow, tail high in the air, was running very fast right in the middle of the road, right in front of the road. But the bus slowed to a crawl, and the driver sounded his horn loudly again and again. But the more he honked, the more frightened the animal became, and the faster it galloped. always right in front of the bus. So here glee means happiness and joy. Wally was filled with happiness and joy. Suddenly a cow came running in the middle of the road, right in front of the bus, and the bus slowed down to give her way and honked repeatedly. And unfortunately, it became more terrified and ran in front of the bus as the driver blew more horns, and the cow became wild and kept on running faster and faster. So move to the next page. Somehow this was very funny to Wally, and she laughed and laughed until there were tears in her eyes. Hey lady, haven't you laughed enough? Called the conductor. Better save some for tomorrow. At last the cow moved off the road, and soon the bus came to a railroad crossing. A speck of a train could be seen in the distance, growing bigger and bigger as it drew near. Then it rushed past the crossing gate with a tremendous roar and rattle, shaking the bus. Then the bus went on and passed the train station. From there, it traversed a busy, well laid out shopping street, and turning entered a wider thoroughfare. Such a big, bright looking shops, what glittering displays of clothes and other merchandise, such a big crowd. Struck dumb with wonder, Wally gaped at everything. So here, thoroughfare means a busy public road, merchandise means things for sale, and railroad crossing, that is intersection where a railway line cross a road or a path. So here Valli found the cow incident extremely humorous and laughed to the extent that brought tears in her eyes. And again the conductor teased her by telling her that it was enough for the day and she should save some laughter for the next day. Somehow the cow went off the road on its own, and the bus stopped at the level crossing from where the train was visible at the tiny dot. And as the train came nearer, it grew larger. The train passed with a huge roar, then, thus shaking the entire road and the bus along with it. And the bus started moving and reached a narrow street. On taking a turn, it reached a wider road. There were big and brightly lit shops on the road that displayed the merchandise for sale, and Wally was attracted towards all the lights and decorations, and she glanced at each and everything. Then the bus stopped and everyone got off except Wally. Hey lady, said the conductor, aren't you ready to get off? This is as far as your 30 paise takes you. No, Wally said, I am going back on this same bus. She took another 30 paise from her pocket and handed the coins to the conductor. Why? Is something the matter? No, nothing's the matter. I just felt like having a bus ride, that's all. Don't you want to have a look at the sights now that you are here? All by myself? Oh, I would be much too afraid. Greatly amused by the girl's way of speaking, the conductor said, but you weren't afraid to come in the bus. Nothing to be afraid of about that, she answered. So here, when the bus arrived at its destination and everyone except Wally deboarded the bus, and the conductor informed her that this was the last stop, and just then she took off another 30 paise from her pocket to buy a ticket back to village, and she expressed that she only intended to take a bus ride upon being asked to wander nearby, and she told him that she was too afraid for that. And conductor, while maintaining his nature all throughout the journey, replied that by saying that she wasn't afraid to travel alone in the bus without anyone's help, then why was she afraid of roaming in the town? To this, Wally replied confidently, as far as the bus ride was concerned, there was nothing to be afraid of that, of in it, in that. Well, then why not go to that stall over there and have something to drink? Nothing to be afraid of about that either. Oh no, I couldn't do that. Well, then let me bring you a cold drink. No, I don't have enough money. Just give me my ticket, that's all. It will be my treat and not cost you anything. No, no, she said firmly. Please, no. The conductor shrugged and they waited until it was the time for the bus to begin the return journey. Again, there weren't many passengers. So here the conductor asked her that if she wished to have the drink at the nearby stall or if she could bring her a drink if she was afraid to go out of the bus. But Wally told her that she didn't have enough money and the conductor insisted on being his treat, but Wally denied and both of them waited for a new set of the passengers to board, and this time too where there were fewer passengers. So let's move to the fourth part. Won't your mother be looking for you? The conductor asked when she gave the girl her ticket. No, no one will be looking for me, she said. The bus started, and again there were the same wonderful sights. So here, concern about the Wali, that conductor asked if her mother would be looking for her as she was all alone. Wali replied by saying that no one was waiting on for her. The bus started, and again there were same wonderful sights. Wally wasn't bored in the slightest and greeted everything with the same excitement she would felt the first time, but suddenly she saw a young cow lying dead by the roadside, just where it had been struck by some fast moving vehicle. Isn't that the same cow that ran in front of the bus on our trip to town? She asked the conductor. The conductor nodded and she was overcome with sadness. What had been a lovable, beautiful creature just a little while ago had now suddenly lost its charm and its life and looked so horrible, so frightening as it lay there, legs spread eagle or fixed a stare in its lifeless eyes, blood all over. So spread eagle means spread out. So here the return journey began, and Vali was just excited as the first time, and she was looking at everything very eagerly when she suddenly noticed a cow lying dead by the roadside. It must have been hit by the fast moving vehicle, and Wally confirmed with the conductor that it was the same cow that had been earlier. Her mood experienced a shift towards sadness, and she wondered how a lovable and playful creature instantly transformed into a horrible and lifeless one. The bus moved on. The memory of the dead cow haunted her, dampening her enthusiasm. She no longer wanted to look out the window. She sat thus glued to her seat until the bus reached her village at 3:40. She stood up and stretched herself. Then she turned to the conductor and said, "Well, sir, I hope to see you again." "Okay, madam," he answered her, smiling. "Whenever you feel like a bus ride, come and join us, and don't forget to bring your fare." She laughed and jumped down from the bus, then away she went running straight for home. Haunted means returned repeatedly to her mind was impossible to forget, and the sight of the dead cow robbed Wally for her enthusiasm, and thus she stopped looking out of the window. She sat silently on her seat until she reached home at around 3:40. While deboarding, she conveyed her intention of seeing the conductor again, to which the conductor replied in a sarcastic manner. He told her not to forget her face the next time she intended to travel, and Wally went home. When she entered her house, she found her mother awake and talking to one of Wally's aunt, and one from South Street. This aunt was a real chatterbox, never closing her mouth once she started talking. "And where have you been?" said her aunt when Wally came in, and she spoke very casually, not expecting a reply. So Wally just smiled, and her mother and aunt went on with their conversation. So here Wali found her mother awake after her afternoon nap, and she returned home. Her mother was talking to one of her aunts and who lived in the South Street, and the aunt spoke so much that Wali called her a real chatterbox, and it was difficult to make her stop talking. And she even asked Wali a question, and without giving her enough time to reply, resumed talking. Wali also took the benefit of the moment and avoided any conversation regarding where she had been. Yes, you're right, her mother said. So many things in our midst and in the world outside. How can we possibly know about everything? And even when we do know about something, we often can't understand it completely, can we? Oh, yes, breathed Wali. What? Asked her mother. What's that you say? Oh, said Wali. I was just agreeing with what you said about things happening without our knowledge. Just a chit of a girl she is, said her aunt, and yet look how she pokes her nose into our conversation, just as though she were a grown lady. Wally smiled to herself. She didn't want them to understand her smile, but then there wasn't much chance of that was there. So poke her nose means take an interest in something that doesn't concern her. And while her mother and aunt were conversing, her mother was heard talking about endless possibilities in the world. One was unaware about that, even one knew. And it was another thing to understand it. Wally affirmed to what her mother was saying, leaving both of them astonished. And she then justified her reaction by mentioning that she was actually agreeing to what her mother was saying. And her aunt then referred to Wali as a nose poking child who acted her like a grown up lady. But only Wali knew what she was referring to, because after all, no one knew about her bus journey. And it was written by translated from the Tamil by K.S. Sundaram and illustrated by R.K. Lakshman. I hope you guys like this explanation. Thanks for watching. Like, share and subscribe my channel. Bye.